This is issue 4 of Sable, Savile and a Wild Pack. I thought this would kill two birds with one stone. Patrick Anonymous, one of my subscribers, loves himself some Savile. So I thought we could look at one of her comics. And then secondly, it allows me to touch a bit on Affinity Wars, because we have an Affinity Wars crossover, which is both barely relevant and hugely relevant. As you can see, Mr. Doom is involved. And so, of all places, we actually show some extra stuff from one of the main subplots in the crossover, Mr. Doom and Kronos, and their investigations into the big villain's scheme and powers. It's ridiculous that we're getting this in Sable Savile instead of, say, Fantastic Force, which has 6 Affinity Wars tie-in issues, or Avengers, which has 0 tie-in issues. Really love this plotline though, Mr. Doom and Kronos teaming up. We are getting to see a bit more of it, and we do get a lot of repeated dialogue and scenes. But it's just great seeing more of it, and even seeing another artist's interpretation of scenes from Affinity Wars. These bits are treated like completely random non sequiturs, because our main story is back on Earth. While Mr. Doom is off with Kronos, we have Mr. Doom's Affinity Wars double gagger that has shown up to assimilate and replace Mr. Doom, but Mr. Doom isn't there, and instead it finds itself battling Doom bots. To quickly explain, Affinity Wars stars Alan Moriarty as the central villain, and one of his gambits was he wanted to replace the world with a world of dark reflections like himself. Alan Moriarty is the evil side of Alan Watson, and he wants to rule over a world in his image. There's a possible continuity error here, disappointingly. I think it's not destroying the story too much, but in Affinity Wars, Mr. Doom and Kronos are successful in their part of the story because Alan Moriarty had a master plan ironed out to the most specific detail, but his plan never accommodated for Mr. Doom. It's a clever thematic thing where Alan Moriarty is incomplete himself. He's only a shade of Alan Watson. And so even his master plan, which he devised and thought that he had worked out to a T, that he had covered every possibility, even that was incomplete because he never took into account Mr. Doom or Kronos being audacious enough to challenge him or successfully sneak in under his nose. Mr. Doom having a double gagger doesn't preclude that, but I think it possibly flies in the face of Alan Moriarty not thinking of someone like Mr. Doom. Fantastic stuff in Affinity Wars, but our actual plot is that Sable Savile, a nation, a fictional country, it is on the borders of Mr. Doom's fictional country, and the two apparently have annual dinners together, which I don't like that as an idea. It's not really Mr. Doom. I don't see Mr. Doom having this almost romantic annual date with Sable Savile, even if it is diplomatic. And Mr. Doom, Well, he obviously isn't there. He's gone off on Affinity Wild's side quests. All this is unbeknownst to Sybil Savile, so the double gagger is using Mr. Doom's absence to its advantage and is going to impersonate Mr. Doom during this dinner date. You would think Sybil Savile would notice Mr. Doom is wearing a horrific new look that is blatantly evil, but she only comments on it, she doesn't think about it. And despite all this pretense, the double gagger doesn't even maintain the charade that long. He attacks within minutes. He exposes himself. Over in Affinity Wilds, Mr. Doom and Kronos are discreetly following Galactus Man's ship. This relates to a scene from Affinity Wilds issue 3. This scene repeats some dialogue from that, but we get some new bits too. This book isn't just about Sybil Savile though. We also have a Wild pack. These are a ragtag team of mercenaries, which includes mostly characters original to this series, but also a couple of familiar faces. Here we have some monitors showing happenings from Affinity Wilds. It can help you further with placement, but our Mr. Doom and Kronos scenes, they actually cover from the start of issue 2 to the end of issue 3. So again, this isn't something you can really neatly fit anywhere. On the Wild pack, we have Sandman. This was after his dismissal from the Avengers. He returned to assistant Sybil Savile. Another notable member of the squad, we don't see him here, but we see him later in this issue, is Bucky from Captain America, John Walters's Bucky. I also think one of the new characters on the team was introduced in the 1991 crossover, the Baron Hydra Gambit. I don't know which one though. The main thing is we get to see Sybil Savile trapped under the heel of a Mr. Doom imposter who has all of Mr. Doom's resources at his disposal, e.g. the Doombots. The Doombots believe it to be the real Mr. Doom, and so we get some fun super spy action with Sybil Savile. A common problem with Affinity Wilds or its tie-ins are that a lot of the writers didn't get enough information to understand the evil doubles. The Mr. Doom double gagger in this has far too much free will and ambition. Maybe you could spin that as being down to Mr. Doom himself having those traits. But yeah, often they would be acting out of their own interests, when the idea, in the main story, is that these aren't even real things. They are warped shadows that were only brought into creation because Alan Moriarty wanted a populace that would worship him unquestioned. I will have mentioned this all before, but I do have some fondness for Sybil Savile. She was a very present character in the issues of Amazing Spider-Man I got as my first real back issue dive. Those issues I recommend to anyone interested in this character. The 4 issues of Amazing Spider-Man by Tom Falcon and Ron French, which feature Sybil Savile. I've not read her solo series. I only have this 2-parter and then another one, which I read ages ago and then forgot to review, and now need to read again if I am to review it. I think, as a solo star, She makes sense. Her appearances in Spider-Man are all memorable, and she stands out a lot. But I think the bigger problem with her existence is that her appearances are mostly in Spider-Man. It feels a bit silly to have this prominent bounty hunter character, and she shows up frequently in Spider-Man, but sparingly in other books. I know she's in a Daredevil story in the 90s, and yeah, there is a Captain America issue that is actually related to that other issue of this series I have. But the volume of her appearances in Spider-Man versus elsewhere, I think that unfortunately makes her forever be thrown in with the Spider-Man books, when really, what her and her stories are, or should often be, aren't that aligned with what Spider-Man books are. Sybil Savile has a bit wider appeal. I think she would appeal to some Captain America readers. It would appeal to Samuel L. Jackson fans, the S.H.I.E.L.D. titles, Scarlett Johansson fans. There's even the notion that it could maybe even appeal to some of the div kids who read Punisher because they like the big guns that shoot murder bullets into the faces of criminals. She is often taking down things like neo-Nazis or fascists, never as coldly or murderously as Punisher. She's more to the style of Charlie's Angels. She's a one-woman Charlie's Angels. Indiana Jones, there's a bit of that too. I think the Todd McFarlane's run had her actually hunting Nazi war criminals, right? Coming to you live from Ireland, it's my comedy sidekick, Raging 15-year-olds. He is here to offer his take on comics and the world. I think the old fascist tating thing is woke. Why can't they be punching the communists every once in a while? What's worse, raging 15-year-olds or someone who watches someone like that's videos to learn what stupid thing he has gone and said now to appropriate for raging 15-year-olds? Back to the comic, we have Sybil Savile outthinking and defeating Doombots. I hope you're enjoying this, Patrick Anonymous. Tis your girlie, Sybil Savile. Back with a crew. Here we can see Bucky. And what happens is that Sandman is confronted by his double gagger right before the team deploy to go and save Sybil. And Sandman is beaten, and his copy takes his place on the jet. I will talk more about some other problems with these double gaggers next issue. To move with freedom around Mr. Doom's castle, Sybil Savile has disguised herself as a Doombot. That is fun, isn't it? I'm not convinced Doombots wouldn't have scanning ability to recognise it is an actual person in the suit instead of a robot. This is the cover to the next issue, this here. I'm showing it to say that a version of this would make for a great cover. Keep tuned if you want to see more, because there is a second part to this and I have got it, and I got it out and I read it, which means I will probably look at it soon. I do think this is quite sincerely fun, harmless action adventure. It's enjoyable stuff. I'll give it 7 thumbs up.